The Democratic Alliance's Member of Parliament and former Federal Council Chairperson, James Selfe, is calling it a day after 43 years in politics. Selfe has been a Member of Parliament since 1994 and had a front row seat on South Africa's to South Africa's democratic transition. We're hoping to speak to James Selfe shortly then about his retirement. He will leave. His last day in Parliament will be in December, according to reports that we've seen this week. James, a very good evening to you. If you can hear us now, welcome to News at Prime. So 43 years into politics, and you've been in Parliament since the beginning of our democracy. Have you fully made peace with the decision that now is the time to go?
Yes, I have indeed made peace. I've been struggling with a medical condition for some time, and I think that I don't have the amount of energy and effort that is required to be a proper, conscientious Member of Parliament.
And you're leaving, as you say, due to your deteriorating health. Does that make the moment more bitter, perhaps, as you would have liked it to be?
No, I think I've had a very good innings, thank you, in Parliament and in public life. And I think, as with all decisions, there comes a time to go. Mm-hmm. And I think that time has arrived.
For all intents and purposes, I mean, there's no denying that you are one of the DA's long-serving heavyweights. You leave at a time when the party has got now a drop in electoral support overall based on the local government elections recently. How are you reflecting on the reasons for those losses, having worked towards building the party for over 20 years?
Well, I think elections come and elections go, and the election fortunes of a political party are the result of many factors. I wouldn't just ascribe them to one or another, but I do think that the management of the party is in good hands, and some systematic reflection on what's the party's been doing over the past couple of years has resulted in some renewal, and I think that renewal will continue.
Do you think the internal drama of the last 3-4 years is to blame, partly?
Well, obviously, the voters don't want a political party to do the political party's business. They want a political party to do their business. So there is a degree of irritation when internal politics takes the place of the primary role of the political party, which is to look after the voters' needs. Yes, that has an effect.
How would you say the Democratic Alliance of 2021 compares to the Democratic Party, which you joined essentially at its formation in 1989?
Well, I mean, the Democratic Alliance is a very big organization. It's a very complex organization, has thousands of members, hundreds of thousands of members. It is represented in local authorities and provincial legislatures and the national parliament in substantial numbers. The Democratic Party that I went to Parliament to represent was a very small organization. It had nearly been decimated in the 1994 election. And in those first 5 years, we really had to work very, very hard. There were only 10 of us in Parliament, and we had to cover all the committees and make our contributions to every aspect of Parliament. It was very difficult, but ultimately, through the energetic leadership of Tony Leon, we were able to make the breakthrough to become a much bigger party. Mm. And that is the difference between the two.
In terms of the criticism, once again, of the party recently, people say one of the reasons why the DA is not necessarily growing at speed or is even losing overall support in some cases is that the current leadership refuses to take any accountability for its misfortunes and where it has erred. For example, I'll quote the recent example, the Phoenix posters in KZN, people saying instead of the party reflecting and saying honestly that, oops, we erred and we shouldn't have done this, it chose to blame other people for being critical of that. Do you think that there's space in the organization for the current leadership to be more inward-looking and critical of the decisions it's making?
Well, as a result of my medical condition, I haven't been involved in the leadership structures of the party at all. So I really don't know whether there's some explanation or some way in which this decision has been made, I'm literally out of the picture.
Mm-hmm. The news this week of the death of South Africa's last apartheid president, F.W. de Klerk, as had been expected, has caused a lot of division and reopened old wounds from that era, some choosing to remember him as the man who eventually, in the late 80s, realized that apartheid was not going to succeed much longer, others saying he in fact is a man who was involved in some of the worst atrocities committed against black people in this country. You've been in politics 43 years. You saw a lot of that play out in real time. What do you think is de Klerk's defining legacy?
Well, I think de Klerk took a certain decision at a certain time. It was probably an imperfect decision that he took. But if he hadn't taken that decision and taken this country on a particular road, there would have been a lot more violence, a lot more deaths, a lot more destruction of property. And while in every human condition there isn't necessarily a perfect answer, I think he is worthy of some praise for taking the country out of a certain cul-de-sac and putting it on another trajectory.
And criticism, because that's the praise?
Well, the criticism is, you know, should he have done more? Should he have fallen on his sword or something like that? Well, I don't really think so.
Should he have recognized sooner that apartheid was a crime against humanity, as he later had to apologize for comments denying that?
Well, perhaps. But in the end, he did the right thing, I think.
James Selfe, good to speak to you, sir. We wish you good health in the months ahead as you prepare for your retirement from Parliament. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.